All right, so week 7 was on the health of an age population. The first thing is that you have a difference between chronological and functional age. Chronological age is essentially the numbered age, and functional age is just their ability to function physically and socially. So someone may be alive, like they might be very young, but maybe they're not able to function socially. They're very isolated, so we might say they're functionally old. In terms of chronological ages, 65 to 74 is young old, 75 to 84 is old, 85 plus is oldest old. Yes, you do need to know those numbers and memorize them. Functional aging versus psychological aging. Functional aging is our ability to function physically and socially, and take it with a degree of salt, because depending on which culture or where you are in the world, that definition will change, because maybe some cultures really depend on physical function versus others are more on social function. It's hard to give an example because Australia doesn't really fall into any of those categories, but I'm sure in some parts of the world it does exist. Psychological aging, this is where it doesn't really have anything to do with like age in terms of chronological or functional components. Rather, it's just that as someone gets older, we tend to see these trends. Yes, there are abnormalities, but negative emotions tend to decrease. Males and females become more similar in values, and memory for long-term things end up being better. So memory for past events versus new memory is harder to generate. Now, in terms of biological aging, what are some of the impacts of this? Aging, where it's going to affect your immune system, decrease mobility, decrease vision, weaker memory, things of that nature. Before we go to ages, I'm just going to go to theories of program aging. I think it's more appropriate. You need to memorize all of these. So the Hayflick phenomenon is that cells are limited to a certain number of divisions. Maybe the telomeres are shortening, and this is causing the cells to self-destruct. Endocrine theory, hormones control the pace of aging. We haven't learned which hormones directly contribute to that yet, but I do know in women who have undergone menopause, there are certain hormones that are released that make them more susceptible to having osteoporosis and things of that nature. Immunological theory, so this is where we have faults in our immune system over time, which lead to increased vulnerability to disease. Now, these are programmed in our body. What are some examples of non-programmed aging, or things that we can accumulate over time? So if you stand in the sun for a long time, you're going to create skin damage. You may release some reactive oxygen species. What these do is that a buildup of these chemicals essentially damage our metabolic cells. That is free radical theory. Now, wear and tear theory, technically it would include reactive oxygen species. However, the difference is that it's more about stressors. So internal and external stressors are going to influence our products of metabolism. They are connected, but they are different. So maybe they're going to ask, like, what's free radical theory versus endocrine theory, and what subset does it fall under? Just an example. And then going back to ageism. So this is discrimination based on age. Use of technology harder on older generations. A couple examples could be maybe there's this attitude of older people being bed blockers, or we have certain cutoffs for treatment based on age, not necessarily how successful the treatment could be. And again, technology use is going to be harder. So there's that. And then different perspectives of death. So there's a couple. One is that death could be that maybe you no longer are a functioning member of society, or you're no longer socially active. It could be that maybe you're just getting older. Maybe it's something that you just don't want to talk about, and so it's taboo. Or you just have lost your independence. So death doesn't necessarily mean cardiac or brain dead, even though this is usually what we think of. It can mean different things based off different cultures. Now, there are two deaths that Australia recognizes: cardiac and brain dead. Cardiac is just basically where your heart has failed, no longer pumping blood, no longer flow of oxygen, you're no longer alive. Brain dead is interesting. There's a lot of dilemmas as to what we should do in these scenarios. Hence, advanced care documents can help alleviate the stress that this can put. Because what it means is that your brain is really not active. I'll try to summarize it. So your brain's not really sending the proper signals to your body to function. But because you're on a ventilator, because you're on a machine that can stimulate heart rate, or maybe your heart is working and you have this basic autonomic stimulus from your spine or whatever, you're technically alive. So you're alive, but at the same time, your brain's not working. So you're kind of just lying there, and you're really only there because of the machinery and technological advancements that we have. Hence, we can transition into advanced care documents. So an advanced healthcare directive can state what medical treatments you want. So I guess this could include do not resuscitate in there. You can have endurance power of attorney, and you basically have 3 legal requirements for this. You must be an adult, you must have the capacity to make decisions, and then you can't be a health provider or paid care of that person, because that could create bias. And what the power of attorney can do is that they can essentially make legal decisions for you. I don't know if this includes do not resuscitate, so that's something to look into. Now, in terms of a statement of choices, this is just like your personal values and preferences for healthcare, but it's not a legal document, so that's key.